Steelers fans, you need to hear this right now. Bill Cowher, the man who bled black and gold for over 15 years, just issued a massive warning that has everyone in Pittsburgh sitting up straight and paying attention. This isn't your typical hot take or casual observation. This is a legendary Super Bowl winning coach who knows exactly what it takes to dominate the AFC, and he's sounding the alarm bells about a team that could completely reshape the conference landscape and put the Steelers' playoff hopes in serious jeopardy. Before we break down everything Cowher said and what it means for Pittsburgh's future, make sure you smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you never miss a single update on your Steelers. We're bringing you the latest news, breaking analysis, and insider information every single day. Now let's get into this bombshell warning from one of the greatest coaches in Steelers history. Bill Cowher doesn't just throw around warnings for no reason. This is a man who patrolled the sidelines at Heinz Field with that iconic jaw, that intense stare, and a competitive fire that turned the Steelers into one of the most feared franchises in football throughout the 1990s and early 2000s. He brought a Lombardi trophy back to Pittsburgh after Super Bowl 40, cementing his legacy in the Steel City forever. When Cowher speaks about the AFC and about threats to the Steelers, people listen. He understands this division, this conference, and this organization better than almost anyone alive. So when he recently went on the air and delivered what can only be described as a stark reality check about an emerging AFC powerhouse, Steelers Nation needed to take notice immediately. Now here's what Cowher actually said that has everyone buzzing. During a recent broadcast appearance, he pointed to a team that many fans and analysts have been sleeping on. A squad that's been quietly building something special while the football world has been fixated on the usual suspects like Kansas City, Buffalo, and Baltimore. Cowher specifically highlighted how this organization has been making all the right moves in the front office, developing young talent at an incredible rate, and putting together a roster construction that mirrors some of the most successful AFC dynasties we've seen over the past 2 decades. He didn't mince words when he said that this team has all the ingredients to not just compete, but to potentially dominate the conference for years to come, and that includes going right through Pittsburgh to do it. The team Cowher is warning about: the Houston Texans. Now before you roll your eyes or think this is some kind of overreaction, let's break down exactly why a Hall of Fame coach who's seen it all would be sounding these alarm bells. The Texans have undergone one of the most dramatic and impressive rebuilds in recent NFL memory. Just a couple of years ago, they were the laughingstock of the league, dealing with front office chaos, a revolving door of coaches, and a roster that looked completely hopeless. But everything changed when they landed C.J. Stroud with the 2nd overall pick in the 2023 draft. This wasn't just adding a good quarterback. This was finding a generational talent who came in and immediately transformed the entire organization from day one. Stroud's rookie season was nothing short of spectacular. He threw for over 4,000 yards, showcased poise and decision-making that veterans struggle to achieve, and led the Texans to a division title and a playoff victory in his very first year as a professional. That's the kind of impact that changes franchises overnight. But here's what makes Cowher's warning so critical and why Steelers fans need to pay close attention. It's not just about Stroud, as incredible as he is. It's about everything else Houston has done to surround him with talent and build a complete football team that can compete with anyone in the AFC. Look at what the Texans have assembled on offense. They went out and traded for Stefon Diggs, giving Stroud an elite veteran wide receiver who knows how to win and how to perform in big moments. They've got Nico Collins emerging as a legitimate star on the outside, a guy who can take the top off a defense and make plays all over the field. Tank Dell provides speed and versatility in the slot. Joe Mixon was brought in to anchor the running game, adding a proven veteran presence who can carry the load and protect that young quarterback. The offensive line has been upgraded and continues to get better. This isn't some one-dimensional offense that lives and dies by the arm of the quarterback. This is a balanced, multifaceted attack that can beat you in multiple ways, and they're only getting better as Stroud gains more experience. Defensively, the Texans have been absolutely relentless in adding talent and attitude. They brought in Danielle Hunter, one of the most productive pass rushers in the entire NFL over the past several seasons, to terrorize opposing quarterbacks. Will Anderson Jr., their first-round pick from last year, already looks like a future Defensive Player of the Year candidate, bringing an edge-rushing presence that most teams can only dream about. They've invested in the secondary, they're getting faster at linebacker, and they're building a defense with that same nasty physical identity that made the great AFC teams so dominant over the years. When you combine that defensive talent with the creativity of their coaching staff, you've got a recipe for a unit that can absolutely shut down high-powered offenses. And that brings us to the coaching situation, which Cowher specifically mentioned as one of the reasons this Texans team is so dangerous. DeMeco Ryans has burst onto the scene as one of the brightest young head coaches in football. He came from San Francisco, where he was the defensive coordinator for one of the league's most dominant units, and he brought that same mentality and system to Houston. But it's not just about X's and O's with Ryans. It's about leadership, accountability, and building a culture that players want to be part of. He's got that team playing with confidence, playing with swagger, and playing with a belief that they belong on the field with anyone. That's exactly the kind of coaching that turns good rosters into championship contenders. Now let's connect this directly back to the Pittsburgh Steelers and why Cowher's warning should send shivers down the spine of everyone in the organization. The Steelers are at a critical crossroads right now. They've got Mike Tomlin, who has never had a losing season and remains one of the most respected coaches in football. They've made the playoffs and shown they can compete. But there's also a harsh reality that can't be ignored. The Steelers have been stuck in this middle ground for several years now. Good enough to make the postseason, but not quite good enough to make a deep run. They've been searching for answers at the quarterback position, trying to find that franchise signal caller who can elevate the entire offense and put them back in Super Bowl contention. While Pittsburgh has been navigating these quarterback questions and trying to maintain their winning culture, teams like Houston have been building from the ground up with a clear plan and a franchise quarterback already in place. That's the gap that Cowher is warning about. The Texans aren't just catching up to the Steelers, they're potentially positioning themselves to leap past Pittsburgh in the AFC hierarchy. When you have a young, elite quarterback on a rookie contract, you have a massive financial advantage that allows you to stack talent all over the roster. Houston is in the sweet spot of that window right now, and they're maximizing every opportunity. Think about what the AFC landscape looks like moving forward. You've got Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes still in his prime, and Andy Reid scheming up ways to win championships. Baltimore has Lamar Jackson and a physical running game that can pound opponents into submission. Buffalo has Josh Allen and an offense that can score with anyone. Cincinnati, when healthy, has Joe Burrow leading one of the most dangerous attacks in football. And now you've got Houston with C.J. Stroud emerging as a potential top 5 quarterback with weapons and a defense to match. That's an absolutely loaded conference, and teams like the Steelers, who don't have that clear-cut franchise quarterback, are facing an uphill battle just to stay relevant in the playoff picture. Cowher's warning isn't just about Houston being good. It's about Houston being built to stay good for a long time, and it's about the window potentially closing for teams that haven't figured out their long-term solutions yet. Pittsburgh went into this past season with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields splitting time at quarterback. Wilson showed flashes of his old form and provided veteran leadership, but everyone knows that's not a 10-year solution. Fields is young and talented with incredible athletic ability, but the jury is still out on whether he can develop into that consistent, elite pocket passer who can carry an offense in the modern NFL. The Steelers are still searching for answers, while Houston already has theirs locked in and thriving. Let's talk about what this means for the Steelers' roster construction and their approach to the offseason. Pittsburgh has always prided itself on building through the draft, developing talent, and maintaining a tough physical identity. That formula has worked for decades and brought 6 Lombardi trophies to the Steel City. But the NFL is evolving rapidly, and teams that don't adapt get left behind. The Texans represent this new wave of team building, where you hit on a quarterback in the draft and then aggressively surround him with talent through free agency, trades, and continued smart drafting. They're not waiting around hoping pieces fall into place. They're making bold moves and taking calculated risks to accelerate their championship timeline. The Steelers need to ask themselves some hard questions. Are they willing to be that aggressive? Are they willing to make the kind of splashes in free agency that can immediately upgrade the roster? Are they prepared to potentially move up in the draft if the right quarterback prospect is available? Or are they going to continue with the steady, conservative approach that has kept them competitive but not quite championship caliber? Cowher's warning is essentially a wake-up call that the rest of the AFC isn't standing still, and teams like Houston are coming fast and hungry. One of the most concerning aspects of this for Steelers fans is the timeline. Houston's window is just opening. Stroud is only going to get better as he gains more experience and familiarity with the offense. The young defensive players like Anderson are ascending toward their prime years. The coaching staff is hitting their stride. This isn't a flash-in-the-pan team that might have one good year and then fade away. This looks like a legitimate contender that could own the AFC South for the next 5 to 7 years and be a constant presence in the playoff picture. Meanwhile, the Steelers have some aging veterans, question marks at the most important position, and a roster that might need some significant retooling to get back to true championship form. Let's dive into the specific matchup implications. If the Steelers and Texans were to face off in a playoff game right now, how would that look? Houston's offense with Stroud slinging it to Diggs and Collins against Pittsburgh's defense would be a fascinating chess match. The Steelers have always prided themselves on defense, on T.J. Watt wreaking havoc and creating turnovers. But even the great Steelers defenses have struggled at times against young mobile quarterbacks who can extend plays and make throws from different arm angles. Stroud isn't a scrambler in the traditional sense, but he's got enough mobility to escape pressure and enough arm talent to make every throw on the field. On the flip side, could the Steelers' offense keep pace with Houston's high-powered attack? That's where the concerns really start to mount. Pittsburgh has leaned heavily on the running game and play action in recent years, trying to take pressure off the quarterback position and control the clock. That's a fine strategy against certain opponents, but when you're going up against teams that can score quickly and force you into shootouts, you need a quarterback who can match them throw for throw. Right now, it's unclear if the Steelers have that guy. And that uncertainty is exactly what Cowher is warning about. You can't out-physical everyone anymore in today's NFL. You need to be able to score points and win games through the air when necessary. The fan reaction to Cowher's comments has been predictably intense. Steelers Nation is one of the most passionate and knowledgeable fan bases in all of sports, and they don't take warnings about their team lightly. Social media has been blowing up with debates about whether Houston is really that big of a threat, whether the Steelers need to panic or stay the course, and what moves Pittsburgh should make to ensure they're not left behind in the AFC arms race. Some fans are pointing to the Steelers' history of success and Tomlin's track record as reasons to remain confident. Others are sounding the alarm right alongside Cowher, demanding that the front office get aggressive and make the kind of moves necessary to compete with these emerging powerhouses. NFL analysts and media personalities have also jumped on this storyline, and for good reason. It's a compelling narrative that speaks to the broader evolution of the conference. The old guard teams like Pittsburgh and New England that dominated for so long are watching younger organizations with fresh approaches and dynamic young quarterbacks rise up and potentially take over. This is the circle of life in the NFL, and it happens faster than most fans want to believe. One year you're a perennial contender, and the next you're fighting just to stay above 500 because you didn't adapt quickly enough to the changing landscape. What makes this situation even more intriguing is the connection between Bill Cowher and the current Steelers organization. He's not some bitter ex-coach looking to throw shade or create controversy. He loves Pittsburgh. He loves the Rooney family. He loves the Steelers organization and wants to see them succeed. So when he issues a warning like this, it's coming from a place of genuine concern and respect. He sees what's happening around the league, he understands the chess moves being made, and he's essentially giving the Steelers a heads up that they need to respond accordingly. This is friendly fire meant to spark action, not criticism meant to tear down. So what can the Steelers actually do about this? What moves are available to them to ensure they're not left behind as Houston and other teams surge forward? First and foremost, they have to figure out the quarterback situation once and for all. That means making a definitive decision about whether Justin Fields is the long-term answer and building around him, whether they're going to pursue a veteran in free agency or via trade, or whether they're going to use a high draft pick to select their quarterback of the future. The worst thing they can do is continue to waffle in this grey area of uncertainty. Championship teams have clarity at the most important position, and right now Pittsburgh doesn't have that. Beyond quarterback, the Steelers need to evaluate their offensive weapons and determine if they have enough firepower to compete with the elite offenses in the AFC. George Pickens is a talented young receiver who flashes star potential, but he needs more consistency and he needs help around him. The tight end position has been solid, but not spectacular. The offensive line has been upgraded, but still has room for improvement. These are all areas where the Steelers could invest resources to give whoever their quarterback is the best possible chance to succeed. You can't ask a quarterback to carry an entire offense with subpar weapons and protection. That's a recipe for failure regardless of who's under center. Defensively, Pittsburgh still has the foundation to be elite. TJ Watt is one of the most dominant players in football when healthy. Alex Highsmith is a quality edge rusher on the other side. The linebacker group has talent. The secondary has shown improvement. But defenses alone don't win championships anymore, especially in a conference loaded with elite quarterbacks and explosive offenses. The Steelers need to find the right balance between maintaining their defensive identity and upgrading the offense to the point where they can win games in multiple ways. That's the formula that works in today's NFL, and it's the formula teams like Houston are currently perfecting. There's also the coaching and scheme element to consider. Mike Tomlin has proven over nearly 2 decades that he can get teams to compete and overachieve, but there have been legitimate questions about offensive philosophy and play calling in recent years. The Steelers have cycled through offensive coordinators and quarterback coaches trying to find the right combination. Meanwhile, Houston has a young, hungry coaching staff that came from one of the most successful and innovative organizations in football. They're not afraid to take chances, they're not married to outdated concepts, and they're willing to evolve with the modern game. Pittsburgh needs to ensure their coaching staff is operating at that same cutting-edge level. The draft will be absolutely critical for the Steelers moving forward. They've traditionally been excellent at identifying and developing talent, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. But they need to hit home runs in the upcoming drafts to keep pace with teams like Houston, who are already loaded with young talent and adding more every year. Whether it's a quarterback, offensive lineman, playmakers on offense, or defensive studs, the Steelers can't afford to miss on high picks. Every selection matters when you're trying to close the gap on emerging powerhouses that are building sustainable contenders. Let's talk about the financial side of things as well, because that's a huge part of this equation. The Texans having C.J. Stroud on a rookie contract gives them an enormous competitive advantage. They can afford to pay top dollar for players like Danielle Hunter and Stephon Diggs because they're not dedicating $40 to $50 million per year to the quarterback position. The Steelers, on the other hand, need to figure out how they're going to structure their cap going forward. If they commit big money to a veteran quarterback via trade or free agency, that limits what they can do elsewhere. If they draft a young quarterback, that buys them financial flexibility, but comes with uncertainty about development and readiness. These are the tough decisions that define franchises for years to come. Another factor that Cowher likely considered in his warning is the culture and momentum shifts that happen in professional sports. Right now, Houston is the hot team, the exciting team, the place where players want to go because they see a championship window opening. That energy and excitement creates a snowball effect, where free agents take discounts to be part of something special, where players elevate their games because of the collective belief, where everything seems to break the right way because the organization is aligned and moving in the same direction. The Steelers had that for decades, and they still have a proud winning culture, but maintaining that edge requires constant effort and evolution. If Houston becomes the destination franchise in the AFC, that makes Pittsburgh's job even harder.
There's also the scheduling and playoff seeding implications to think about.
If the Texans continue to dominate the AFC South, they're going to be guaranteed playoff spots and potentially home games in the postseason. The Steelers, playing in a brutal AFC North with Baltimore and Cincinnati, might find themselves on the outside looking in or forced into wildcard spots where the road to the Super Bowl is exponentially harder. The margin for error in the AFC is razor thin right now, and teams that can lock up division titles have a massive advantage. Houston's path in the South is far easier than Pittsburgh's path in the North, which is another element of Cowher's warning about the changing power dynamics in the conference. Looking ahead to the next few seasons, it's not hard to envision a scenario where the Texans are hosting AFC Championship games and making deep playoff runs, while the Steelers are fighting just to secure wildcard berths. That's not being disrespectful to Pittsburgh or overhyping Houston. That's just an honest assessment of where the trajectories are pointing right now. The Texans are ascending with a clear foundation and plan. The Steelers are trying to maintain relevance while navigating significant questions about their long-term future. Those are two very different places to be, and the gap could widen quickly if Pittsburgh doesn't respond with urgency. Cowher's warning should also resonate with the Steelers' front office and ownership. The Rooney family has always operated with class, patience, and a long-term perspective. They don't panic, they don't make rash decisions, and they don't blow up successful formulas without careful consideration. Those qualities have served them incredibly well over the decades. But there's a difference between patient and passive. There's a difference between strategic and stagnant. The warning from Cowher should be a signal that now is the time for calculated aggression, for bold moves that might feel uncomfortable but are necessary to stay ahead of the curve. The NFL rewards teams that are proactive, not reactive. We've seen this movie before in the NFL. Remember when the Seahawks had that dominant run with the Legion of Boom and Russell Wilson on a cheap contract? They were unstoppable for a few years because they had elite talent at every level and financial flexibility. Then the contracts came due, the talent dispersed, and the window closed faster than anyone expected. Or look at the Patriots dynasty, which stayed ahead of everyone by constantly evolving, making ruthless personnel decisions, and never getting comfortable. The teams that fall behind are the ones that rest on their laurels, assume past success guarantees future results, and don't recognize when the league is passing them by. Cowher is essentially telling the Steelers not to be that team. For Steelers fans watching all of this unfold, the emotions are understandably mixed. There's pride in the organization's history and confidence in Mike Tomlin's leadership. There's excitement about young players like Pickens and Broderick Jones developing. But there's also anxiety about the quarterback situation and concern that the window might be closing faster than anticipated. Cowher's comments have brought all of those feelings to the surface, forcing everyone to confront the reality that maintaining excellence in the NFL requires constant work and adaptation. Nothing is guaranteed, and the teams that succeed are the ones that stay hungry and humble regardless of what they've accomplished in the past. The good news for Pittsburgh is that they're not starting from scratch. They have a Hall of Fame caliber head coach, a strong organizational structure, a passionate fan base, and plenty of talent on the roster. The foundation is there to compete. But foundation alone isn't enough when you're going up against teams like Houston that have elite quarterbacks and aggressive front offices stacking talent. The Steelers need to match that urgency and that vision if they want to stay in the championship conversation long term. Cowher's warning is the wake-up call, and now it's up to the organization to respond appropriately. As we wrap this up, the big picture message from Bill Cowher is crystal clear. The AFC is loaded with emerging threats, and the Houston Texans represent the most dangerous of all because of how they're built and where they are in their competitive timeline. The Steelers can't afford to sit back and hope things work out. They need to attack this offseason with a clear plan, make definitive decisions at quarterback, surround their offensive talent with more weapons and protection, and ensure their championship window doesn't slam shut while teams like Houston are just beginning to peak. This is a pivotal moment for Pittsburgh, and how they respond over the next year or two will determine whether they remain a true AFC powerhouse or slip into mediocrity while watching younger, hungrier teams take over the conference. Steelers fans, what do you think about Bill Cowher's warning? Is he right to be concerned about the Texans and other emerging AFC threats? What moves should Pittsburgh make this offseason to ensure they stay competitive? Do you trust the organization to make the right decisions at quarterback and across the roster? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's get a discussion going. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more in-depth Steelers analysis every single day, smash that like button and make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. We're covering every angle of this team, from breaking news to roster analysis to playoff projections. The offseason is going to be fascinating for Pittsburgh, and you don't want to miss a single update. Thanks for watching, and let's hope the Steelers take Coach Cowher's warning seriously and come back stronger than ever. Here we go, Steelers!